The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over our quiet suburban street. It was one of those late afternoons in early September, the kind that hinted at the end of summer but still held onto a few lingering days of warmth. The air was thick with the scent of freshly mowed grass, and the faint sound of children's laughter echoed from nearby yards. I stood at my mailbox, the rusted metal mouth yawning wide, half expecting to find nothing but bills and junk mail. The mailbox, a relic from when the neighborhood had been first built, was adorned with peeling paint and a flag that rarely seemed to stay upright. I reached in, my fingers brushing against a few envelopes, one from the electric company, another from a local pizza place advertising a 2-for-1 deal. I sighed, pulling them out and tossing them onto the small pile of other unwanted papers in the crook of my arm. As I rummaged deeper, my fingers grazed something different, something that felt oddly significant. I pulled it out, my heart skipping a beat at the sight of a thick, cream-colored envelope with my name scrawled in elegant cursive. The handwriting was unmistakable, a mix of familiarity and nostalgia that sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could even process the moment, I heard a voice behind me. "Come here. I have something for you." I turned to see my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, standing a few feet away, a bemused smile on her face. She was a sprightly woman in her late 60s, with silver hair always neatly pulled back into a bun and a penchant for floral print dresses that seemed to bloom with the seasons. Each dress she wore told a story, vibrant and lively, just like her spirit. In her hands, she held an envelope that looked strikingly similar to the one I had just found. "What?" I asked, confusion washing over me. She stepped closer, her eyes sparkling with mischief, a glint that suggested she had a secret she was eager to share. "This ended up at my place somehow. Thought you might want it." The way she handed it over made it feel as if the envelope mattered less than the moment itself. I took it from her, my fingers brushing against hers for a fleeting second, and a strange warmth surged through me. The envelope was heavier than I expected, and I could feel the weight of whatever lay inside. My heart raced, a mix of astonishment and apprehension swelling within me. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson," I said, my voice slightly shaky as I tore my gaze away from her warm smile to look at the envelope. "It's from your father, isn't it?" she said, tilting her head slightly, her expression shifting from playful curiosity to genuine concern. I hesitated, biting my lip as I turned the envelope over. There was no return address, just my name, neatly written. The last time I had heard from my father was months ago, and it had been an awkward phone call that left me with more questions than answers. I think so," I finally admitted, my heart pounding in my chest. Mrs. Thompson's face softened. "You should open it. Could be important." I nodded, but the words felt heavy in my mouth. The anticipation of what lay inside was almost unbearable. I glanced back at my mailbox, the mundane bills and advertisements now feeling trivial compared to this moment. "Would you like to come in for some iced tea while you read it?" Mrs. Thompson offered, her eyes inviting, the warmth of her voice wrapping around me like a soft embrace. I hesitated for a moment. My home was a small refuge, a cocoon where I often preferred solitude. But there was something about her warmth, her genuine offer of companionship, that tugged at my heartstrings. I had been feeling so isolated lately, tangled in my thoughts and worries, the kind of loneliness that crept in during quiet moments and wrapped itself around me like a shroud. "Sure, I'd love that," I said, surprising even myself. As we walked toward her house, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation swirling within me. The envelope felt like a bridge to my past, a connection I had been desperately trying to navigate. Mrs. Thompson's home was filled with the comforting scent of vanilla and cinnamon, reminiscent of cookies baking in an oven, a stark contrast to my own cluttered apartment, where the remnants of takeout boxes and laundry had begun to pile up. "Have a seat," she said, gesturing toward her cozy kitchen table, adorned with a vase of fresh daisies that stood proudly in the center. The flowers were a cheerful splash of color against the pale wood, brightening the space. "I'll grab the tea." I sat down, my fingers absently tracing the surface of the table as I looked around. The walls were lined with photographs, capturing moments of joy and laughter, birthdays, holidays, and smiling faces that reflected a lifetime of cherished memories. I felt a pang of longing for something I hadn't fully experienced: the warmth of family gatherings, the laughter that filled the air during celebrations. "Here we are," Mrs. Thompson returned, placing 2 glasses of iced tea in front of us. "I hope you like it sweet." I took a sip, the cool liquid refreshing against the warmth of my skin. "It's perfect, thank you." She smiled knowingly, her eyes glancing at the envelope still clenched in my hand. "You don't have to open it right now if you're not ready." I looked down at the envelope, my heart racing. "No, I think I should." With a deep breath, I carefully peeled back the seal and slid my finger under the flap, the anticipation building like a drum roll in my chest. I pulled out a single sheet of paper, the handwriting unmistakably my father's, a chaotic scrawl that seemed to dance across the page. "Dear Emma," it began, and I felt a shiver run through me. As I read, my father's words washed over me like a tide, both comforting and suffocating. He spoke of regrets and missed opportunities, of life choices that had led him down a path away from our family. There were apologies woven into his sentences, his attempt to explain the years of silence that had hung between us like a thick fog. "I've thought about reaching out for so long," he wrote, "but I didn't know how to bridge the distance I created. I'm sorry for the hurt I caused, and I hope this letter finds you well. I want to be part of your life again, if you'll let me." The words were heavy, their weight pressing down on my chest. I paused, my heart constricting as they hung in the air. The hope in his letter felt both enticing and terrifying. Mrs. Thompson watched me intently, her expression softening as she sensed the whirlwind of emotions brewing within me. "What does it say?" I swallowed hard, the words catching in my throat. "He wants to reconnect," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes widened slightly, and she leaned closer, her hands resting on the table. "That's a big step. How do you feel about it?" I took a moment to gather my thoughts, the weight of my father's absence pressing down on me like an anchor. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice shaking. "Part of me wants to forgive him, to understand why he left. But another part of me is so angry. He missed so much." Mrs. Thompson nodded, her expression empathetic. "It's okay to feel both things. It's a complicated situation, and you deserve to take your time processing it." I looked back at the letter, my fingers tracing the elegant cursive. I never expected to hear from him again. I thought that door had closed." "Sometimes life surprises us," she replied gently. "And sometimes it's the surprises that lead to healing." I took another sip of the iced tea, the coolness a welcome distraction from the storm of emotions raging within me. "What do I do now?" "Maybe you could write him back," she suggested, her eyes shining with encouragement. "You could start by sharing how you feel, what you need from him moving forward." The idea blossomed within me, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. "That could work," I said, feeling a small sense of relief. "I've always wanted to tell him how his absence affected me." Mrs. Thompson smiled, her warmth wrapping around me like a soft blanket. "Then it sounds like you have a plan." We talked for a while longer, the conversation flowing effortlessly between us as we shared stories of family, love, and loss. I felt a connection with her that I hadn't expected, a bond formed over shared experiences and understanding. She shared stories of her own family, her voice laced with nostalgia as she spoke of her late husband, the memories of their life together a bittersweet melody that floated in the air. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room, I realized that this moment, the unexpected encounter with my neighbor, the letter from my father, the openness of our conversation, was a turning point. It was a reminder of the power of connection, the importance of reaching out to those who matter to us, no matter the distance that may separate us. Finally, as the golden light began to fade, I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "Thank you for everything, Mrs. Thompson. I really needed this." She beamed at me, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're always welcome here, Emma. Remember, you're not alone in this." I nodded, my heart swelling with gratitude. As I walked back to my apartment, the letter tucked safely under my arm, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Maybe my father's letter was the first step toward healing, a way to bridge the gap that had formed over the years. As I reached my front door, I took one last glance at Mrs. Thompson's house, the warm light spilling from her kitchen window. I smiled softly, recognizing the importance of moments like these, the ones that remind us that even in the midst of uncertainty, we are never truly alone. That night, I sat at my desk, the envelope from my father laid out before me. I took a moment to breathe, recalling Mrs. Thompson's words about the power of communication. I grabbed a fresh sheet of paper and began to write. I poured my heart onto the page, expressing my feelings of hurt, confusion, and longing. I detailed the moments my father had missed, birthdays, graduations, and quiet evenings spent alone, wishing for his presence. As the words flowed, I felt a weight lifting, a sense of release as I poured my emotions into the letter. I realized that writing to him was not just about reconnecting. It was also about reclaiming my own narrative, about acknowledging how his absence had shaped me. After sealing the letter, I felt a sense of accomplishment, a newfound determination to take control of my own story. I would send it the next day, and no matter what response I received, I would stand firm in my feelings and be ready to face whatever came next. That evening, I found myself reflecting on the unexpected kindness of Mrs. Thompson, her open heart reminding me that connections could be formed in the most unlikely of circumstances. The bonds we create can offer strength and support, guiding us through the complexities of life. As I fell asleep that night, I held on to the belief that healing was possible, that the journey toward reconnection with my father could lead to a brighter future. With the warmth of hope wrapping around me, I drifted off, ready to embrace whatever tomorrow would bring.